Welcome back to the watch list. Time to dive into those Tesla numbers. Joining me right now, Hatem Dhiab is with us, managing partner, Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management, and Kevin Riley, managing partner, Exponential Investment Partners. Thank you both for being here. What an exciting time for Tesla shareholders. They're seeing things running back hot. They're hearing from Elon Musk as he puts it to bed. The demand is real. Hatem, I'll start with you. What did you take away here in the last 24 hours?
Nicole, thank you for having me back. Listen, I think this is the quarter that we know that Tesla is bigger than Elon Musk. It's the quarter that he was the most distracted, arguably, and yet Tesla was able to deliver some really fantastic numbers, from a profitability to growth to cash flow to operations. I think they've kind of crushed all areas. So I'm really happy with what's going on.
Yeah, and Kevin, what do you think about here when we take a look at what's going on with other things? I mean, how about the fact that they have so many orders for the Cybertruck? They have 1.5 million reservations ahead of time. Are you feeling that that's a kind of a surprise? And what other surprises came to your attention?
Yeah, well, good to see you again, Nicole. You kind of hit the nail on the head there for me. The really interesting thing that I look at is the Cybertruck. I mean, like you said, they've got 1.5 million pre-orders for that thing. But the interesting thing is that, you only had to put down a $100 deposit to make that pre-order. So the question is, are those real, pre-orders or not? Because if you think about it, let's say they do 2 million units this year. They don't break down, the different types of cars they're selling. How many of those are, going to be eventually the trucks? I don't know, but that's a huge amount of pre-sale orders for that thing. So that to me was really the most interesting thing. And if you noted yesterday, after the earnings came out, the stock was kind of flattish, maybe up a little bit until the conference call started. And that's when Musk said, yeah, we think we're going to do 2 million cars. And that's when it really took off. So, the question is, are they really going to do 2 million cars?
It's interesting that you say that, because when the Ford Bronco came out, you had to only put down a small amount for the Bronco. So the reservations do seem to have some vagueness to them. I see what you're saying, Kevin, but I think the excitement is there, and the fact that everybody's getting involved, that must say something. What else are you watching here? Because it's my understanding, Hatem, that they still have pretty low costs, and even by cutting the prices of these models, they've generated more demand and less worry about margins here.
I mean, Tesla will sell every car they can make. I think even the 2 million number is sandbagging. They already have capacity for a little bit over 1.9 today without ramping up both Berlin and Texas or Austin. So I think they actually can make even more cars. Even Elon said on the call that, they only said 1.8 on the call because they just don't know what's going to happen this year from an economic standpoint. But the reality is, by cutting down prices, it's a shot across the ball for every other manufacturer, because now Tesla can make millions of cars below $55,000. And they can make money. They have positive margins, while most other manufacturers actually don't make money on their EV productions. So what happens now is Tesla pretty much is the only car company that can make EVs at a profit below $55,000. And that's really fantastic.
So at $157, Hatem, where do you think this stock could be fairly priced, or is it heading higher? I mean, give me something.
I mean, it's well above its lowest for the year. Obviously, we don't do really price targets, but the stock had grown. The company has grown at 40 to 50%, both on top line and EPS growth. So even more than that on EPS. So I think the stock could go up to 200, 250 over the next 12 to 18 months if they can keep executing and the macros don't deteriorate.
Right, understood. Kevin, are you thinking it's more right around where it should be, or you think it moves higher?
No, I think it moves much higher. I totally agree with Hatem. I think at least $200 is a fair price for this stock. Remember, it was over $300 a year ago or so. And another thing that's really interesting that I don't think was really talked about a whole lot, but it was in the news, they're going to spend $3.5 billion at that Nevada plant of theirs. Well, I don't think they would be spending that much money unless they really intended to need it to build more units. And, like you said, they're selling every car they can make and then some. Elon said, twice as much demand for everything they can produce. So, yeah, I think there's a long big, strong road ahead.
I mean, just the fact that they have plants all over, they were able to really sort of navigate during the time of COVID. They were producing here, they were producing there based on what was open, what wasn't. They sort of really navigated around the supply chain issue to a certain extent, better than some of the other automakers. What about buybacks? You know, there's been some whispers of 5 to 10 billion in buybacks. Hatem, were you waiting for something like that?
I think they should have done some buybacks when the stock was a little bit lower. They do have $22 billion in cash, but I think as any growth company and growth manager, they want to prepare for maybe a slowdown. They want to keep their cash, especially with the fact they're putting so much money in their growth. They're spending so much money in their factories and ramping up, and just like Kevin said, in Nevada and Berlin and Texas. So I'd rather them just keep investing and getting more capacity built rather than just buying stock.
Kevin, are you surprised to hear so many naysayers and so many, haters of Tesla or all things Elon Musk? There are a few people who have price targets under $100. Meantime, you mentioned the Cybertruck. I think people are focused also on the semi truck. What are you thinking? What do you say to those naysayers, Kevin?
Well, what I say is that there's been naysayers about this company for a decade or so. I mean, there's been short sellers all over the place. Auto industry, longtime guys saying the stock will never make, or the company will never make it, et cetera. That's always been around. I think there is some validity to, the stock price really getting hammered recently because of, the Twitter acquisition by Musk, and, he just hasn't handled that well. But it seems to me like he's been a lot quieter over the last couple of weeks, aside from his trial that he's going through right now. But it seems to me like he's kind of maybe gotten a lesson a little bit that he should pipe down a little bit. And I think if he can just do that, I think it'll be fine. And I mean, look what's happened in January. The thing's gone from $100 to 160 or so as of today. That's quite a and I think it's
just year to date, I mean, it's up almost 30%. I mean, it certainly had a great run. I mean, what about the other players in the field of EVs? I mean, is the competition, they're just light years ahead of them? I mean, or do you think the competition is catching up?
I think Elon said on the call that you need a telescope to see any close player in the EV space, and I think he's right. They are the only fully integrated EV maker. As we learn, it's the traditional makers, car makers or OEMs, they're just assembling a bunch of parts. Tesla is rebuilding and redesigning and has really the most advanced manufacturing processes in the car industry. So they just really don't operate like anybody else. The Chinese players are something to watch. China is the biggest EV market with 4 million cars, and they are spending a lot of money in IP and so forth. So I think that's really the only biggest players, but I'm not really worried about the other ones.
And while the Wall Street Journal was saying that maybe Elon Musk was looking to raise $3 billion more towards Twitter, that made folks for Tesla shareholders nervous once again, but he seems to have put that aside. Final thoughts, Kevin, about the big picture of EVs?
The big picture is it's obviously going to just take over the entire auto industry at some point. The question is how long. I think the growth rate is really strong. And I mean, just look at Tesla alone. If they're doing 50% increases every year, I mean, it's the direction of the future. Tesla's best in show by a mile. And, even best car makers in the world like Porsche make an electric vehicle, but it's not as good as a Tesla Model S. So, and the Tesla Model S is cheaper. So, I think that it's clearly the industry leader, and I think they've got a great future.
Thank you both, Hatem Dhiab and Kevin Riley. Great to see you both. So glad. What a great conversation.